night shift at Walmart. I should have never taken that job. It was supposed to be an easy gig. Overnight stocker at the Walmart just outside of town. The pay wasn't great, but I needed something to keep the bills paid while I figured things out. Everyone I knew warned me about that store. They said it was cursed, haunted, or worse. I thought they were just making up stories, but they weren't. It was my second week on the job, and the monotony of restocking shelves had already set in. The place had a strange atmosphere after midnight, silent, except for the occasional beeping of forklifts and the hum of the air conditioning. There were only 3 of us working that night. Me, a grumpy older guy named Carl, and Stephanie, a quiet girl who mostly kept to herself. Around 2 a.m., I was restocking the canned goods in aisle 17 when I heard something weird. A soft rustling sound, like someone dragging their feet. I assumed it was Carl until I looked down the aisle. No one was there. I shook it off and kept working. Then I heard it again, closer this time. "Carl?" I called out, my voice echoing in the empty aisle. No answer. I peeked around the corner, but all I saw were rows of perfectly stocked shelves. The air felt wrong, heavy, like the store was holding its breath. I tried to laugh it off and move to the next aisle, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching me. By 3 a.m., things started getting weird. I was in the toy section, stacking plush animals, when I noticed something strange. The rows of dolls, usually neatly aligned, were all facing backward. I swore they were fine earlier. With a nervous chuckle, I turned them back around, but as soon as I did, one of them fell off the shelf. I bent down to pick it up, but something made me stop. The doll's eyes, big, glassy, and lifeless, were fixed right on me. Then it blinked. I jumped back, heart hammering in my chest. Nope, 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 nope. I left the aisle without looking back. I found Carl near the front of the store, smoking a cigarette by the registers. "You ever notice weird stuff around here?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Carl exhaled a cloud of smoke and gave me a sideways glance. "Kid, this place is screwed up." I waited for him to continue, but he just shook his head. "Don't think about it too much. Just get your paycheck and leave." "Like what kind of weird?" I pressed. Carl snuffed out his cigarette. "You ever heard the stories? About the guy who disappeared in the freezer section? Or the woman who swears she saw something crawling through the ceiling vents?" I swallowed hard. "You're joking." He didn't respond, just walked back toward the stockroom, leaving me standing there in the eerie glow of the checkout lights. Around 4 a.m., Stephanie came running up to me, her face pale and her hands shaking. "There's something in the stockroom," she whispered. I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" She grabbed my arm, dragging me toward the back. "Just come see." We entered the dimly lit stockroom, the buzzing fluorescent lights casting long, flickering shadows across the stacked boxes. The air was cold, unnaturally cold. I followed Stephanie to the far end, where a row of shelves was knocked over, heavy crates spilled onto the floor. Then I saw it. Something was moving in the darkness between the shelves. It was too fast, too jerky. "Carl?" I called out, my voice cracking. No answer. Stephanie clutched my arm tighter. "I told you," she whispered. We heard a wet, dragging sound coming from deeper inside. A low, gurgling noise that sent shivers down my spine. Then a whisper. "Get out." Stephanie bolted. I wasn't far behind. We found Carl standing near the electronics section, staring at the security monitors. "They're back," he muttered, eyes glued to the grainy black and white feed. "What do you mean, they?" I asked, my voice shaking. He pointed to the screen. In the frozen food aisle, a dark figure stood perfectly still. First, I thought it was just a shadow, but then it moved. It jerked its head toward the camera, as if it knew we were watching. I swallowed hard. "What the hell is that?" Carl turned to us, his face grim. "They don't like when you notice them." I stared at the monitor, watching the figure slowly turn and walk. No, glide, toward the stockroom. "We have to get out of here," I whispered. Carl led us toward the emergency exit near the back, but when we reached the door, it wouldn't budge. "Damn thing's jammed," Carl grunted, yanking at the handle. I banged on it, desperate. Somebody help! And then we heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming from the aisles. They were getting closer. Carl turned to us. No noise. No movement. We huddled in the darkness, hearts pounding. The footsteps stopped just outside the break room door. Then, a whisper. We see you. The door rattled violently, and I swear I saw something peering through the tiny window. 2 milky white eyes staring right at me. Carl grabbed a fire extinguisher and smashed the glass, unlocking the emergency door from the outside. Go, he yelled. We sprinted into the parking lot, gasping for air, but the moment we looked back at the store, the lights were normal. The aisles looked untouched, and there was no sign of anyone or anything inside. I quit the next day. Stephanie did too. Carl just gave me a knowing nod as I left, like he'd seen it all before. No one believed us, of course. Management dismissed it as sleep deprivation and stress. They told us Walmart has cameras everywhere. If anything weird had happened, they'd have seen it. But they didn't, because whatever was inside that store, it didn't want to be seen. And sometimes, when I drive past that Walmart late at night, I see those same pale eyes staring at me from the darkness inside. The Walmart night shift horror. I should have listened to the rumors about the Walmart on the edge of town. Everyone said it was haunted, cursed, or worse. But I needed the money, and the night shift seemed easy. Just 8 hours of restocking shelves, handling the occasional late-night customer, and zoning out until morning. I figured people were just making up ghost stories to pass the time. But I was wrong. It was a Tuesday night, my third shift. Things had been uneventful so far, except for the eerie silence that settled over the aisles after midnight. My co-workers, Dave and Sarah, usually stuck to the front registers, while I handled stocking in the back. I was stacking soup cans in aisle 7 when I heard it. Faint whisper. At first, I thought it was the old intercom system crackling, but then I heard it again, closer this time. Eric? I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Hello? I called out. No answer. I shook it off, convincing myself it was my imagination, and kept working. But the whispering didn't stop. Every so often, I'd hear my name drifting through the aisles, soft and distant, like it was coming from inside the shelves. I tried to ignore it, but the feeling of being watched was growing stronger. By 2 a.m., I was in the electronics section, zoning out while organizing the shelves. The store's fluorescent lights flickered, which wasn't unusual, but this time, it felt different. I turned my head toward the security cameras above the TVs, and there it was, a tall, shadowy figure standing at the end of the aisle, completely still. It had no face, just a smooth, featureless mask of darkness. I blinked, and it was gone. My hands trembled as I grabbed my walkie-talkie. Dave, Sarah? Are you guys messing with me? Static. I tried again. Guys, a distorted voice crackled back through the radio. Not Dave. I dropped the walkie and sprinted down the aisle. I found Dave at the self-checkout, scrolling through his phone, completely oblivious to what I'd just seen. Dude, I panted. There's something in the store. He looked up, annoyed. What now? A ghost? Please, Eric. It's just a big, empty building. Your mind plays tricks on you. I saw something, Dave. I swear it. He sighed and put his phone down. Fine, let's check it out. I led him to the electronics aisle, but of course, the figure was gone. The shelves stood perfectly still, the TVs flickering with static images. See, Dave said, smirking. Nothing. I wanted to believe him, but deep down, I knew something was watching us. By 3 a.m., Sarah had disappeared. She was supposed to be at the front, but when I went to check, the registers were empty. The lights above them flickered rapidly, and her half-finished drink sat on the counter, condensation pooling around it. Sarah? I called, my voice shaky. No answer. Dave and I split up to search for her. I checked the clothing section, pushing through racks of hanging clothes, each one swaying as if someone had just brushed past them. Then I heard it, a soft, wet breathing sound from behind a row of mannequins. I swallowed hard and peeked around the corner. Nothing. But when I turned back, one of the mannequins had moved. It was facing me now, its head tilted unnaturally to one side. I stumbled backward, knocking over a rack of shirts, and sprinted out of the aisle. I found Dave near the grocery section, looking pale. "I can't find Sarah," he muttered. "Something's wrong," I said. I think she's not alone." Just then, the store intercom crackled to life. "Eric, Dave, come to the stockroom," Sarah's voice, but it didn't sound right. We hesitated before heading to the back of the store. The stockroom was cold and dark, the hum of the freezers filling the air. Pallets of merchandise were stacked high, casting long shadows. "Sarah?" Dave called out, stepping forward. A soft rustling echoed through the aisles of boxes. Then, footsteps, slow and deliberate. Something was moving behind the shelves. "Sarah, is that you?" I whispered. No response. We turned a corner, and there she was, standing perfectly still, her back to us. Her long hair covered her face, and she was facing a wall of stacked boxes. "Sarah?" Dave said, reaching out. Before he could touch her, she turned. Too fast, too jerky. And I swear, her eyes weren't human. They were black, hollow. And then she smiled. It wasn't Sarah's smile. It was something else. Dave grabbed my arm and we ran. We sprinted back to the front doors, but they wouldn't budge. Locked. The automatic sensors weren't responding. I banged on the glass, screaming for help, but outside, there was nothing. No cars, no lights, just an endless black void. And then, the whispering returned. "You can't leave." It was everywhere, all around us. The store lights flickered again, plunging everything into a sickly, stuttering darkness. I turned, and there it was, standing in the middle of the store, taller than before, its featureless face staring right at us. It moved, gliding closer, its limbs stretching unnaturally. "We have to hide," I whispered. Dave pulled me toward the back offices, and we locked ourselves inside. For the next hour, we sat in the dark, listening to the thing moving through the aisles. It whispered our names, its voice sliding through the vents. "Do you think it's Sarah?" Dave whispered. I shook my head. "Sarah's gone." Suddenly, the door handle rattled, and then, a voice from outside. "Let me in." It was Sarah's voice, but we knew better. Dave grabbed a metal bat from under the desk. "We make a run for it." I nodded, fear gripping my chest. On 3, we yanked the door open and sprinted toward the emergency exit. The creature loomed in the center of the store, its long fingers reaching for us. We slammed into the emergency doors, and they burst open. We stumbled outside into the freezing night, gasping for air. But the parking lot was empty. No cars, no lights, just darkness. And when we turned back to look at the store, it was completely normal. No flickering lights, no whispers, just Walmart. I quit the next morning. So did Dave. No one believed our story, of course. The cameras showed nothing, and Sarah was reported missing. They never found her. But sometimes when I pass by that Walmart late at night, I see something standing in the aisles, watching, waiting. The night shift at Walmart. I never believed the stories people told about the Walmart on the edge of town. You know the kind. Urban legends about weird figures lurking in the aisles, employees disappearing without a trace, and strange noises after closing time. I figured it was just small-town gossip. That was before I took the night shift. I was broke, desperate, and figured stocking shelves for minimum wage wouldn't be too bad. Just me, a couple of coworkers, and 8 long hours of mindless work. Easy money, right? I was wrong. Started during my 3rd shift. Midnight was dragging on, and I was stacking cans in the frozen food aisle when I heard something. A faint tapping sound, like fingers drumming against metal. I turned, expecting to see Dave, my coworker, messing around. But the aisle was empty. I shook it off and went back to work, stacking soups and trying to stay awake. But the tapping came again, this time from behind the shelves. I leaned in, pressing my ear against the metal. Tap, tap, tap. It was slow, deliberate, like it wanted me to hear it. I told myself it was just the pipes, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching me. By 2 a.m., the store was eerily quiet. Dave had wandered off to the electronics section, and Jenna, our supervisor, was holed up in the office, probably asleep. That left me alone in the toy aisle. I was unpacking a box of dolls when I noticed something strange. One of the dolls, the kind with blinking eyes and a voice box, was missing its batteries. But when I turned my back, it whispered, "Come play with me." I dropped the doll, heart hammering. I stared at it, lying there on the white tile, and then it blinked. Nope. I grabbed my cart and bolted down the aisle. I found Dave near the self-checkout, scrolling through his phone. "Dude, something weird is going on," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Dave smirked. "Let me guess. Haunted dolls?" I didn't answer. He rolled his eyes and sighed. "Man, this place just messes with your head after a while. Go take a break." I nodded, but as I turned, I saw something move near the clothing racks. At first, I thought it was just a mannequin, but then it twitched. I grabbed Dave's arm. "Did you see that?" "What?" He followed my gaze, but the figure was gone. Just empty racks swaying slightly. I swallowed hard. I thought I saw something." Dave just laughed. "You need more sleep, man." But I knew what I saw, and I knew it was still out there. At 3 a.m., Jenna's voice crackled over the intercom. "Eric, come to the stockroom." I sighed and headed to the back of the store. The stockroom was dimly lit and cold, the hum of the refrigerators filling the air. Jenna wasn't at her desk. In fact, the whole room was empty. "Jenna?" I called. No answer. Then the lights flickered, and I heard a scraping noise from behind the shelves. I moved closer, heart pounding, and then I saw it. A shadow, too tall and thin to be human, moving between the shelves with jerky, unnatural motions. Its limbs stretched in impossible ways, and its eyes, if they were eyes, were nothing more than black voids. I stumbled back, knocking over a stack of boxes. The thing turned toward me. I bolted out of the stockroom, slamming the door behind me. By 4 a.m., I couldn't find Jenna or Dave. The store was too quiet, the aisles too empty. Then the store intercom crackled again. But this time, the voice wasn't Jenna's. "Eric, come back to the stockroom." Sounded like her, but something was wrong. The words were distorted, drawn out. I grabbed the walkie-talkie from my belt. "Jenna? Dave? Where the hell are you?" Static. Then breathing. Heavy. Wet. I dropped the walkie-talkie and ran. I found myself in the grocery section, hiding behind a display of cereal boxes. My breathing was ragged, and my hands were shaking. That's when I saw it again. It stood at the end of the aisle, its twisted, elongated fingers trailing along the shelves. It didn't walk. It glided. I ducked down, peeking through the boxes. It stopped suddenly, tilting its head in an unnatural way. And then it spoke, in Jenna's voice. "Why are you hiding, Eric?" I covered my mouth to keep from screaming. It moved closer. The smell of rot filled the air, and I could hear it breathing, ragged and wet. I crawled along the floor, keeping low, until I reached the end of the aisle. Then I ran. I reached the front doors and slammed into them, but they wouldn't budge. Locked. I pounded on the glass, screaming for help, but outside was just darkness. That's when I noticed the security cameras mounted above the registers. One of the monitors showed the toy aisle, and standing there perfectly still was Jenna. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, and her mouth hung open in a silent scream. I wanted to run, but my legs felt frozen. Then, slowly, she lifted her hand and pointed, right behind me. I didn't look, couldn't. Instead, I ran down the aisles, weaving through the shelves until I found the break room. I slammed the door shut and locked it, collapsing against the wall. My phone. I fumbled it out of my pocket and dialed 911. A robotic voice answered. "This number is not available." I was trapped. Then, the lights in the break room flickered and died. I held my breath, listening. Scrape, scrape, scrape. It was outside the door. Then whispering, "Come out, Eric. We just want to play." Tears streamed down my face. I didn't move. Couldn't. Hours passed, at least it felt that way. The scraping eventually faded, and I must have passed out because the next thing I remember was the morning sun streaming through the windows. The store was normal. Jenna and Dave were gone, and there was no sign of anything strange. I walked out into the parking lot, feeling like I'd escaped something I couldn't understand. But before I left, I glanced back inside, and there, at the end of the toy aisle, a doll sat on the shelf, turned its head toward me, and whispered, "See you next time." I quit that morning, never went back. But every now and then, when I pass by the store at night, I swear I see something standing just inside the sliding doors, waiting. Night Shift, the Walmart horror. I never wanted the night shift at Walmart. No one did. It was the graveyard shift, midnight to 8 a.m., where the only company you had were towering shelves, flickering fluorescent lights, and the occasional half-asleep customer wandering in looking for something they probably didn't need. But I needed the money, and it wasn't like I had many other options. My name's Eric, and this is the story of why I'll never step foot in a Walmart again. It started on a Tuesday night, the kind of night where the store was dead silent. Only a skeleton crew was on duty, me, the cashier, an old janitor named Gus, and my supervisor, Lisa, who was holed up in the back office watching the security feeds. "Just stock the shelves and stay out of trouble," Lisa had said when I clocked in. Seemed easy enough. By 2 a.m., I was stacking cans in aisle 7 when I heard something, a faint shuffling noise. At first, I figured it was just Gus sweeping somewhere nearby, but then I heard it again, closer this time. A soft, dragging sound that echoed through the empty aisles. "Hello," I called out. No answer. I peeked around the corner. The aisle was empty, but a row of cereal boxes had fallen from the shelf, scattering across the floor. Weird. I shrugged it off and picked up the boxes, putting them back where they belonged. But as I turned to leave, I saw something out of the corner of my eye, a dark shape at the far end of the aisle. It was gone before I could get a good look. "Just your imagination," I muttered, but deep down I wasn't so sure. By 3 a.m., things got weirder. I was stocking frozen foods when the store intercom crackled to life with static. It made me jump, and for a second, I thought Lisa was making an announcement, but no words came through. Just that eerie, hissing static. Then the lights flickered. A heavy chill settled over me, and I swore I could see my breath in the air. I glanced down the frozen aisle, and that's when I saw it. A figure stood at the far end, bathed in the dim, flickering light. It was tall, too tall, with limbs that seemed too long for its body. His face was hidden by a dark hood, and the thing just stood there staring. I took a step back, heart hammering in my chest. "Lisa," I called. Is someone in here?" No response. I reached for my walkie-talkie, but all I got was static. The figure didn't move, but I swear it was getting closer without actually moving. Like the space between us was just disappearing. I bolted down the aisle, past the frozen pizzas and TV dinners, and skidded into the next section. But when I turned back, nothing. The aisle was empty. I found Gus mopping near the electronics department. "Did you see that?" I asked, breathless. "See what?" He gave me a confused look. I hesitated. "Nothing." "Never mind." Gus shrugged and went back to mopping. I turned to leave, but then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The security monitors in the electronics section were flickering, and on one of the screens, that figure, standing in the toy aisle, motionless. Before I could say anything, the screen flickered and the image vanished. I ran to the back office, bursting through the door. "Lisa, we have a problem." Lisa looked up, clearly annoyed. "What now?" "There's someone in the store," I said, trying to catch my breath. "I saw them on the cameras." She frowned and turned to her monitors. "Nobody's here, Eric. Just you, me, and Gus." I pointed at the screen. "I saw them. Check aisle 14. Lisa sighed and clicked through the cameras. Aisle 14 came into view, empty. I could feel my face heating up. I swear, there was someone. Maybe you need a break, she said, turning back to her phone. I left the office, feeling like I was losing my mind, but I wasn't. Something was in that store with us. At around 4 a.m., I heard it again. The dragging sound came from the toy aisle. I should have walked away. I wanted to walk away, but something pulled me forward. The toy aisle was filled with stuffed animals and dolls, all neatly arranged. But one of the dolls had been knocked over. A plastic baby doll with glassy blue eyes and a smile that felt too wide. Then the doll spoke. "Mommy?" I stumbled back, knocking into a shelf. The doll's head turned toward me, its smile widening. "Come play." I grabbed it and threw it down the aisle, but it just kept laughing in that broken, tinny voice. And that's when the shelves began to shake. One by one, toys tumbled to the floor. I ran, not looking back, but I could hear something behind me. Heavy footsteps, faster than they should have been. I didn't stop until I reached Gus again. "Eric, you look like you've seen a ghost," he said. "Something's wrong," I panted. "We need to get out of here." Gus just looked at me with tired eyes. "It's too late for that." And that's when I realized Gus's shadow wasn't his. I bolted for the front doors, slamming into them, but they wouldn't budge. They were locked. I pounded on the glass, screaming, but the parking lot outside was empty. No one could hear me. Then I heard a voice behind me. "Going somewhere?" I turned. It wasn't Gus anymore. It looked like him, but his eyes were all wrong, black and hollow. "You should have never come here," he whispered. Suddenly, the lights in the store all shut off. Darkness swallowed everything, and I could hear something moving toward me, dragging itself along the floor. A whisper filled the air. "She's coming." I don't remember how I got out. One moment, I was trapped, and the next, I was outside, gasping for air in the cold morning light. Lisa and Gus were gone. The store looked normal. Too normal. I tried telling the police, but they just gave me blank stares. Walmart had no record of Lisa or Gus working there. In fact, the store had been closed for renovations all week. But I know what happened, and every time I pass by that Walmart at night, I swear I see someone watching me from the toy aisle window, smiling, waiting,